This is Mesha with As Long as You're Breathing, and I'm here today with Shelly Roman. Hello, Shelly. Good to see
Hey,
you.
Risha. Hey.
Shelly and I met doing the Find Your Voice, Save Your Life series of books, and it's StreamYard, so I'm backwards. I can't figure out which way to go. We can write books, but we can't manage StreamYard. That's what I find with everyone. But Shelly and I met in these books, and where we talked about using our voice. And I know we both really believe in that, and I know that's some of what Shelly's going to talk about. But before we do, want to tell you all that, well, as long as you're breathing, keep living in great big capital letters.
You're breathing, keep living. As long as you're breathing, keep living. As long as you're breathing, keep living. As long as you're breathing, keep living.
All right. So there we go. Now we're back. Now we're back, Big Shelly. So thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait for our people to hear about your story because we're doing this as an Every Life is a Story event. And as I said, we met in these two books, which became best selling. So I know we were both thrilled about that. And because of that, we end up going on to become Crave More Life coaches, which has been an exciting thing. I know you work with something called Shift, which has been I'm very interested in, and we'd love for you to do a whole program on that. So if we don't get into it a lot today, don't worry about it. I want you to come back and talk about it. But I know that this has been a journey for you, of course, like it has been all of us. And I know that you started with your own thing that was channeled to you, which was called Return to the Light, and it's turned you into a co-walker. And so all of those things are just very interesting to me, especially since this month the focus is on how everyone's spiritual awakening or energetic awakening, as I call it, is different. So all that out of the way, Shelly, just tell us about Shelly Roman and how you show up in the world as the magnificent, wonderful being that you are, because it's been such a blessing to me and I want to share that with everyone else.
Oh, thank you so much, Mesha. And I have to say, I love that title. As long as you're breathing, keep on living. Did I
Yes.
get that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Keep living.
as
Yes.
keep living, as I was listening to you sing that, I was thinking that's not always so easy to do. It's
It's
not always.
not.
Yes,
Yeah. Where that
it
came
is.
from, we were taking a group of chronic pain people to Africa, or we were trying to convince them that they could go on the trip. And that's when COVID hit. And so we didn't get to go. But that was the song I wrote as the promo for that was as long as you're breathing, keep living. And there's a line in it, let the end come find you on your own mountaintop. And so, I mean, I love the song. And then as COVID happened and we've had to shift everything up, it's really become, I realized what I've always been saying in the chronic pain world, because it was fibro life, great big capital letters. I've always been talking about
Uh-huh.
living. And so, so then when I entered into all of this, it was just a natural progression. So thank you so much. I'm glad you like it.
I really love that because that's an important message that needs to get out into the world. And so a little bit about me. I actually have a 5-minute signature speech that I kind of put everything into a nutshell, but I'm not going to do that formal speech. So in 1962, I was born in Hampton, Virginia, and I was left in the hospital. And I was abandoned in the hospital. And then I was adopted into a family. Now, my natural brother had already been adopted into that family. And when I was born, that family was given first refusal of me after they made me suitable for adoption, right?
Wow.
And and so I went to live with this family, my mom and dad. But my mom, as it turned out, was mentally ill. She was paranoid schizophrenic, and that led to a lot of violence in the household and trauma there. It
Sure.
was, I can remember being hit till I bled, standing and looking at the back of my legs and blood coming down my legs. And my sexual abuse is a part of my story. My mom knew that was going on and told me that it was always the woman's fault. But I wasn't a woman. I was just a little girl. And even if I was a woman, not my fault.
Not your fault.
Not my fault. And so I definitely have memories. I actually did a speech one time about how I learned to feel pretty, and just that feeling of being held to the ground and not being able to get back up, and then eventually just rolling back in my head and just being there. And as we aged, my mom's disease progressed. And certainly by the time I was in high school, that's my clear memories. She walked around the house 24/7 with a gun. And there were times when she would point the gun at us or wake us up in the middle of the night because the bad guys were out there. And I would have to go sit in the bushes to look for the bad guys. Or she would wake me up and say, come listen at the window. Do you hear them? Do you hear them out there? And it was ultimately, what I realize now, very terrifying, that kind of situation. I was never able to get her help until right at the end of her life, when she was actually in the nursing home dying of lung cancer. That was the first time I was able to give her help, because she had a family around her that thought getting help meant that that something was wrong with her. And I have so many stories about, I could write, like a Glass Castle kind of book about that kind of thing. And so that's how my life started. And my dad is still alive. He's almost 97, but I blamed him for a long time for not protecting us. And I realize now that, how some people are alcoholic. My dad is the ultimate Al-Anonic, meaning that he did everything he could, but he couldn't do anymore. And now I've heard him talk about the stuff that happened to him in the war. He was in Guadalcanal and Okinawa.
Sure.
And I understand. I mean, he came back from that. He's since told me that when he came back, every time he had a bad thought, he just put it out of his mind. Mm-hmm. And so when things were in front of him, he just looked the other way. And actually, he's told me that there were times she would come in the middle of the night and put the gun right on his forehead and cock it. And he would wait for her to shoot him. And then she would just wander away. And then, of course, he would get up in the morning and go to work and leave us there. And I can still remember some number of years ago. Well, it's been the last 15 years because it was in this house. The last thing I ever had to say about it is my dad and my brother and I were chatting and telling these stories. And I just went, and you got up every day and left us alone with her. And he didn't respond. And I knew at that moment it was the last thing I ever had to say about it. Last thing. Now, in that period, one of the ways I survived is through using alcohol and drugs. It really helped me.
Sure.
It helped me until it didn't help me anymore.
Absolutely, I understand.
Yes. So recovery is part of my story. I'm coming up on 23 years sober now. Yes. So that's part of my story. In 1988, I married my first husband, who I met in college. I became a pilot. I went to engineering school. I started working. I was very successful. I had 2 sons. My drinking progressed, and that actually led to the end of my marriage. And I continued trying to be a good person and raising my sons with their dad. I bought a house right down the street. So we did that. Life continued. There were lots of things. I ended up in 2006 meeting Bill, my current husband, and I married him in 2007. He's been a real gift in my life. In 2010, my older son was the driver in a fatal car crash. It was one of the most horrible nights of all of our lives, especially him. And I remember none of the kids were drinking or anything like that. It was a left turn and an accident. His best buddy passed away that night at 19. I think that incident forever changed all of us, especially him, in ways that we can't even know. In 2013, my brother, my natural brother, who I grew up with, and he was an abuser in my life as well. He eventually became an heroin addict who was a junkie. At one point, he got about 9 months clean. I was helping him with that. And then he relapsed, ended up in jail, and hung himself in jail. That was in 2013. So, and I often say about that, and one of the reasons why I like the title of your podcast is for some reason, I've always been able to want to stay alive more than 50%, right? If it's
Absolutely.
on a continuum.
I absolutely relate to that.
Yes, he dropped to 49. And then and of course there were other things along the way. And despite all this, my career was incredibly successful. I ended up running large engineering organizations, running global programs. I was very successful in what I did. Eventually started cutting back and just became a contractor. And then in 2019, the last trauma happened to me, and that was when my children cut off all contact with me for reasons I don't know. I didn't even understand what happened until I got a letter. I got an email from one of my daughter-in-laws on December 26, 2019, saying they didn't want to talk to me again. And that broke me. And I went in to quit work because I couldn't function. And they asked me to work part-time. So I would go into this before lockdown. I would go into work 2 days a week. And then at home, I would be at home 3 days a week, just kind of sitting here trying to survive, trying to feel it.
And figure it out. Right. Yeah.
And there've been so many gifts to that. And ultimately, in that in 2021, right in that January, what started happening is I started getting these communications that my purpose was to teach people how to walk through trauma. And that, to me, that explained everything. That explained why all of these things had happened, because, all of these people are divine sparks. They're sparks of the divine. We chose to have these relationships. I chose to learn these lessons. And now it's time for me to do something about it. And what came to me was, you're supposed to write down how you do it. So I started making these notes. And that's where I came up with Return to the Light. And light is a 5-step process for doing that. L is let yourself fall, which we live in a society that does not allow people to collapse or fall. And one of the things, I talk a lot about that, is that we're taught to act resilient. And what I want to do is help people actually be resilient. Because there's some reason why I'm still here and I'm okay, and my brother is not. Because I'm no better than he was, right? It's just different lessons that we were learning. And I is inch along, and that's where I talk about how you're going through your day, the part of going through trauma where you're going through your day and you're still in a lot of pain, and how do you exercise self-care over self-numbing during that period. G is gathering grace, how you find people and things that start bringing peace to you. H is heal yourself. You gather enough grace, you can start healing yourself. And then T is transform the world. Because if every time we heal from something, we're transforming our world there.
We
And
are.
my business, yes, my business is called Sacred Ground Walk. And that's why the one reason I call it that is because every time one of these things would happen to me, I'd be like, okay, I'm on sacred ground. I have to take care. And then it came to me that there's that instant when something happens. It can be a phone call, it can be an internal realization or a memory. And then somewhere out in the future is your new normal. And that distance is a sacred ground walk. And so I call myself a co-walker because my job is to walk with you through that in whatever ways I can do that. And so, and then right after that all came to me, I ended up hooking up with Diana and wrote that first book or that first chapter. And then she asked me to do the second one. So the first chapter in Find Your Voice 2, my chapter is all about my experiences as a woman in a man's field and learning how to speak up and say, no, don't treat me like this, or don't. And that particular story, it was like, don't touch me. And then in Find Your Voice 3, my story is about my spiritual journey, which started when I was 9. Because one of the other things that happened to me is when I was 9, I had an accident where I fell 16 feet off a diving board onto concrete.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But what happened with that is I was at the top of the board and I saw my body falling. And I thought, I wonder what I would do if that really happened. I was
wonder
not.
What?
Right.
So you weren't in your body. Right?
I was not in my body when it happened. And I flashed back to my 3rd grade classroom where our teacher had one day put mats out and taught us how to fall. And she later said she had never taught that before and never taught that since. And so what I remembered was to turn my body and put my arms out. So I did that. And people who saw me fall said I actually hit twice. Then I was back in my body and I didn't understand what happened. And I kind of pulled myself up and I'm standing there on the concrete. There was, I don't know whether he was an EMT or a paramedic. I don't know what his level was, but he was right there in line, a young man right behind me. And he came over and started talking to me and put me down. And that experience was very instrumental to me because it was the first time I knew I was more than this body. And I was really afraid to tell people because I thought I was crazy. And of course, I didn't know what crazy was then. I was only 9. And fortunately, I grew up Methodist. So it was pretty tame. There was no big, huge lessons about that. But even with that gentle religion, I had this idea that something was wrong with me. But one day out in the driveway, I told my dad. Now, my dad is a big Bible reader. He reads them all and understands about the mystical experiences in the Bible. And he assured me that I was okay. And so that felt very safe to me. So then I started knowing those experiences were okay. And even as I progressed into adolescence and young adulthood and kind of separated myself from source, source followed me. And I know in one of the stories I describe getting visitations at night. And it's just continued through my life where I always would just know things. In fact, my current husband calls me the Oracle of Doobie-Doo. Because I just know things.
We just know, yes.
No. And I have all the spiritual work and I connect with my guides in whatever way works. And ultimately that's led to me creating this business. And it's gone so many ways. Of course, I had no idea how to start a business or what to do. I know how to build airplanes or design complicated software systems, but I don't know how to do this. And but I kept finding people to help me, finding people to help me learn how to write a book, people who helped me write a bio that transitioned me from what I was doing to what I'm doing now. People helped me with my keynote speech. Uh, Writing those 2 books, I find that as practice for now. It's time for me to write my own book. Those were chapters, and that was my practice. And then I met through another happenstance, the connection. I met another lady named Kathy Hawk, who runs a business called Clarity International. She's out on the West Coast, and she started this business because 30 some years ago, before there were functional MRIs and things like that, she could see when people felt energized or positive. And she started developing a whole coaching system and tools around that. And while she was out there, she worked with the executives at Microsoft, Starbucks, Boeing, doing all of that. And it was the lead engineer at Microsoft who said, well, you've created a human operating system, which I love that.
I love that. I love it.
I do. And so I've been working with her, and that has been an amazing journey in my life. I can't talk up Kathy Hawk and her business enough. But she honored me by allowing me to learn how to teach one of her tools. And this tool is called Shift. And it's, you know how we're all told, think more positive, just have positive thoughts.
I know. That spiritual bypassing thing. Yeah. It's easy. Just think positively.
It is.
Not exactly. No, there's more to it than that.
But this is a tool that teaches you how to do that and allows you to do it. And my husband and I have been doing it. It's hardly any time at all. Every day since November, and it has transformed our lives.
I know you said that, and so definitely that is. I wrote down again the name. I keep meaning to go look it up, and so I'm just going to have you on and just let you do a whole episode on that, because I know you talk about how transformational that's been for both of you, and the relationship too. Yes.
It has, and now I'm training people on that. I do it individually in my coaching sessions, and I'm about to schedule a workshop that the whole training is about 3.5 hours. The training is $300, which includes materials. So I ship materials to you, and then we go over it. And even my husband, who's not into any woo-woo at all, he's my grounding. He keeps me very grounded in things. We've been doing this. It has changed how we talk to each other. One thing we discovered doing this is how often we make assumptions about each other. And anybody who's been in a relationship knows assumptions lead to arguments.
Assumptions are they're so dangerous, and I try to avoid them so terribly much. And it's like I can't wait to hear how this tool says do it, because I have put all kinds of behavioral style analysis to it. I've done everything, and unless somebody's willing to work with you on that, you can't help when somebody else makes an assumption. So it's
exactly. I'm very fortunate. I'm very fortunate that Bill will do this with me.
Yeah, because when you don't make assumptions, but you need to clarify, and then they won't do that either, then it's like, what else can you do? So I can't wait to hear about all of that.
Yeah. So I can't wait to train people and train more people. I've been doing some, but I need to update my website and get the workshop up there. But it's my husband has been using this at work. Now, one thing you need to know about my husband is he can be pretty reactive when he is angry. And a few weeks ago, there was some internal political drama at his office, and somebody was talking smack about his employees. Now, he
Oh,
doesn't like that.
sure.
But instead of storming over or sending a nastygram, he came home and we discussed it, and we pulled it up using part of the tool, part of the materials. And he ended up taking a picture of some of the stuff so he could have it on his phone, made a plan, went into work, and he was able to have the conversation. It was short, it was positive. He didn't necessarily get everything he wanted, but he felt great. And
Yes.
he comes home now and he says things to me like, I am different. I feel different inside. And I like, one of the things that it's done for me is it's transformed my Facebook, because Facebook was always scary for me. You never know when you're going to go in and there's going to be some political stuff or whatever. As I've been doing this, I've done something to shift my near field, influence my near field. My
Right.
Facebook is no longer scary. And
That's
I was
wonderful.
even showing him, look, there's no scary posts. There's nothing bad on here.
Right.
And it has totally shifted things. I even was able to, I started having some problems with my third chakra, and I was having some terrible heartburn at night. And my doctor a while ago had wanted me to get off the medicine. And I had never been able to get completely off the omeprazole that I was taking for that. But I'd been taking it for 2 decades, so it needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed a mantra using this tool. And I have not taken one of those pills for, I don't know, month now.
That's
quite a while.
amazing. Good.
And it has been an amazing thing. So I am changing my brain, and I can teach you and anybody else some very simple techniques that we now have the science of neuroplasticity, and we have functional
Right.
MRIs to show what Kathy could just see in people. So my brain is different than it was 4 months ago. How great is
Right.
that?
The science, that's the beauty of all of this. And that's what I keep pointing out to people, is that we can talk the woo of it, and we can, and that certainly is there. But then there's the scientific stuff that backs it up. It's the logic of it. It's the fact that everything is energy. So what we put out, we naturally attract back. And that's energy, and that if we get stuck, well, then energy isn't moving, and energy is meant to move. And therefore, if we are stuck, then the energetic body, how that reflects in the physical body is some sort of pain or some sort of illness, some sort of disease, or some sort of mental stress, or some sort of, and so it really all does relate back to something scientific. As simple as, why do we light candles whenever we meditate or do cards or whatever? It's because it speeds up the vibration of molecules, which raises the vibrational frequency in the space. I mean, so it's and vibrational frequencies that equate to the emotion we're in, and are we in a denser emotion or a lighter emotion? And so it really is, for all the woo we talk, and it is, I love talking it that way, because that's the soft and gentle and feels good way. But there is a very grounded scientific side to all of it. And so we can't have one without the other. They're integrated, because we are an integrated energetic being that lives in a very physical existence. And so you can't have one without the other. It's both.
Yes. And that is the ultimate dilemma in lessons. And I want to, my methods are all Socratic. I don't lay hands on people or anything yet.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'm getting yet. Who knows what's going to happen next week or next month, right?
Yeah, I don't do the touch stuff either, but it's like you, who knows? If they tell me to, I'll go there.
Next year it'll be like, yes, who knows what I'll be doing.
Yeah, what do you want me to do?
Right. But I want to be able to help all of those people I worked with for 38 years who are not going to buy any woo, right? They're not going to buy that. So I really see my role as being this bridge between those two communities, because I'm a living being bridge of that. I've walked that for all these years. And I just don't think there's nothing there's not a paradox there. You can have this and you can have that. It's
It is.
all,
That's it.
yes,
Yeah. It's not either or. It's this and. Yeah.
exactly.
And as the last time you said that, once again, I got the channel for that is exactly what you're meant to do, because as the planet's vibrational frequency is going up, those people from that world you were in, they're starting to experience and understand, their level of consciousness is coming to it. And you
Yeah.
are the perfect vehicle. You are the perfect physical being to explain what's happening to them, because they will take it, they will accept it from you because you're one of them.
Yes.
And so they will accept, and you can speak it in a way that, depending on the level of consciousness they're at, if they've come far enough, you can get a little woo with it. If they're not, then you can explain it to them in the very terms that they will accept. And so, yeah, the first time you said that, I mean, I started getting that, and yes, she is right on. Tell her she's right on. Tell her, and I'm like, she knows she's right on. Tell her anyway. So you're right on.
Well, it's
right on target.
It's very fascinating to me, because now this is the part where I tell you how grateful I am to my children, because sometimes I wonder if this was an agreement between them and me before we came in, or if this was my guide smacking me because I was just about to take a full-time government job.
Oh.
And if this hadn't happened, that's where I would be today. So I don't know. I do know I'm only separated from their temporary bodies. I'm certainly not separated from their eternal bodies. And I do have a lot of dream visits from them. I had one with my older son just the other day. And that's always very interesting when they come over. My husband, who's not their dad, he has a lot of visits from them too. So if they're visiting me, I must be visiting them. So who knows what they remember. And,
right, that's it. It's what are they open to? What do they remember? Where they at with their level of consciousness? All that, but you don't have to know, because you are having the experiences, and you understand the temperance of it. It's not. This isn't permanent. This isn't forever. This is a for now thing. Yeah.
And then the third part of my business is what you and I just went through, learning to be a Find Your Voice certified healers.
Right.
And I'm not ready to take that to a paid client yet, because I need to practice it and get it all in my mind. Everything I learn, I practice first before it becomes a product. Sure. So Shift is a product. My keynote for Return to the Light is a product. I am working on a workshop for that. That is progressing. And now I'm going to have to learn about Find Your Voice. And all of that will one day come together in some special Shelly sauce that will be revealed when it's supposed to be revealed. But my mission in Sacred Ground Walk is to make sure that no one's trauma is ever ignored or minimized again, and that people have the tools they need to do it. And if I can help one person see that they can walk through really hard things and not just survive, because I'm not just surviving, I am thriving, I am okay, I am doing well, and I have returned to the light. And that's what I think all of us can do, because that's what we're meant to do. None of us are meant to suffer. And I know we get into all these discussions about what fair is. I have a ladies' Bible study I go to with my church, another Methodist church, and they're often talking about what's fair. And I like to say, well, I used to worry about fairness too. And now I realize fair is at this level. It's at the spiritual, ecumenical level, beyond what we can necessarily see or know while we're still stuck in these bodies. Mm-hmm. So it's all fair, right? Source. There is no unfairness with Source.
Right, because it does all come back to the energy we're putting out, the energy that we're in, the agreement we made when we said, this is how I'm going to show up in this life. This is what
Right.
I'm going to do. And so, and when we can put it all in that context, we stop labeling. We stop labeling people. They're not bad and us good. And I'm not talking about those who necessarily perhaps have, because, and again, they're not bad, but I do understand there are people who are narcissistic. There are people who are, so I get that, but still, it's still not about, are they bad? Are they good? It's none of that applies, because we only control ourselves. And so it's really about how are you going to react to everything, not labeling it, not getting
Yeah.
stuck with a label. And is it fair? And how do I even the score here? Or how do I balance the books here, or any of those things? It's about, okay, so all that is happening. I
Yes.
get that. That's out there messing with the integrity of your field, your energetic field. But guess what? It's your energetic field, and all
Yes.
that matters, because all you control is your energetic field. So it's all about how we are going to respond and react, and reaction is energy in motion. So
Yes.
it's all about the energy of it. And when we can reduce it to that, and talk in terms of energy, and get rid of labels, then people can, when they can take that, even though it's still emotional, because it's energy in motion. But when you start taking the labels out, and you stop taking and this, you have to cope with that, and you have to fix this, and you have to deal with that. But no, it's just, what is your energy here, and how are you going to respond? How are you going to show up in it? Oh, really? It's that simple. Well, I'm not saying that's simple, but it is that streamline, though. We complicate it with all the periphery that we think is a part of it, that we have no control over that periphery. We only have control over us in the energetic field. So when we come back to that, then we aren't coping, because I heard you talk so much about the things that you went through, and I can just imagine the coping mechanisms that you built, which of course the alcohol was a way to cope. And I'm always saying, I don't ever want to cope with something else again, because every time I build a coping mechanism, then I have to heal from the coping mechanism, so I never want to cope with something again, because coping is just putting off healing from it, or progressing from it, or releasing
Exactly.
it.
We still have to process it. We don't get out of our human experience. Just because we know we're spiritual beings, we're still going to feel pain. We're going to grieve. We're going to do this. But even during all of this stuff with my kids, I knew there was never blaming them. My husband would sometimes get angry. I'd be like, no, they did not wake up and say, I'm going to devastate my mother today. They did not wake up and do that.
Something about their level of consciousness, something they're perceiving, something about where they're at, the vibrational frequency they're in. When you can take it all to the energy of it, that depersonalizes it.
Yes.
And you realize what we've been told our whole lives, anybody that does something to you, it's not about you, it's about them. It's true. And there's the energy management. There's the science of it. There's the physics of it. They're not it's the level of consciousness they're at. It's the vibration they're in. It's not you. It's not what you did. It's where they're at. And so,
well, it's interesting. I was having this discussion with a lady I study with who does past life regressions. And we were talking about the things we chose to learn. And I said, well, Joanne, how about this? I'm estranged from every single person I am biologically related to, because my brother died. He has a son. Don't know where that person is. My biological parents, don't know where they are. My 2 sons and my granddaughter, don't know. And she said, well, look at it this way, Shelly. Maybe there was a life when you were you and your family were attacked by a marauding band, or a virus came in and everyone in your family died but you, and you decided you couldn't go on, so you took your own life. She goes, that's one example of why you might need to come back and balance this now, and to learn that you can go on even without your biological family. And I took a lot of comfort in that, because no one's bad. I'm not bad.
No,
they're not bad. No one's bad. We have to all learn how to deal with our human existence and being here as spiritual beings. But just like what I had to heal with my dad and with my mom. And one thing that's fascinating now is my dad and I talk a lot about seeing my mom and my brother on the other side of the veil and how they won't be in their sick bodies or their sick minds anymore. And how then the gig is up. Oh, this is what all this was about, and how wonderful that will be. And my dad wants to come back next life as a duck because a duck can swim, walk on ground, fly, and dive. And to my dad, that's the most perfect thing.
That's freedom right there. That's freedom. If you do all those things and just quack while you're doing it, there you go. That's freedom.
So I know that if I outlive my dad, then every time I see a duck, I will be talking to my dad, because
your dad will be there. Every duck will be. It won't matter. It won't matter. He could be right there on your shoulder saying, "Shelly, that's not me." You go, "Shut up, it is." That's you.
But my life has gotten so different and so big and so amazing. And so I just keep trying to follow the next thing in front of me, because if I'm meant to help someone, I want to help them in whatever way I can. Because there's no other reason why I would have had to walk through all these things.
Exactly.
There's no other reason. It's not like God's looking down and saying, "Shelly, you're a terrible person. We're going to make you suffer." That
does not happen. You are so on point. As I listen to you talk about your life, I had a schizophrenic son. So outing myself was like, people are going to think you're schizophrenic. They're not going to believe you. There were even times when, even before I understood that I was clairaudient, that I asked doctors because of, I'm always in my head, and, and they're like, "If you're asking us, no, you're not." So outing myself was like, my mom was literally, I was, online doing it. My mom was like standing over, she was like, "I can't believe she's doing this." "Yep, she's doing it. I knew she'd do it." I knew she would do it. And so my mom, who's very religious, they would tell her friends, "Yeah, she talks to angels," because that sounded good to her friends, and so she would leave it at that. But, and they'd be like they would be hurting or something, and she'd say, "Let Mesha pray for you. She can bring the angels in." "Oh, angels? That's great." So I would leave it at that, so his mom can put it in those terms, but she listens. She listens, and like Sherry, she's learned a lot from Sherry and I and the experiences we've had. And Mom would be like, "You and Sherry need to step into your power here and do that stuff you all do and take care of that." And, but she wouldn't say that to her friends. She would just say, "There's angels."
Well, right.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to put words to something that is really indescribable.
Right. We personify, and that's why we say angels. It's energy. That's the dimension of that energy. We've personified it as angels. We've got dragon energy, unicorn energy. I don't know what they look like, really. That's the personification. It's the energy, and we've personified it because we have to have some context within which to have the conversation and to relate to that energy. And so, the other thing, I grew up with guns at me, knives, choked. I grew up in so much of what you're saying, but I'm sitting here listening to you. I tear up because I'm like, oh my God, as often as it happened to me, as bad as it was, Shelly had it so much worse. And those things, well, what I mean is the frequency sounds like it was much more, because I left. I moved out when I was 14. I was done. I started leaving home when I was 12. By the time I was 14, I was out of there. Okay. My mom stayed until I was 16, and then I got to live with her finally. And then she finally divorced my dad when I was 18, right when I turned 18. But yeah, so, and I understand that. Why did you leave us in this? Why didn't you do something? But I now get it was the level of consciousness. And the thing is, growing up, my dad, I certainly knew he was responsible. It's not like I gave him a full pass and was like, it's okay that he's done this. But yet, on some level, as a little child, on some level, I knew there's a reason for this. There's, it's because it so much wasn't him also. I mean, he was the life of the party. He'd give the shirt off of his back to someone. He was, and nobody would believe he was this way until he started acting that way with other people. I mean, nobody believed it until the night they were all at the house and he drew a gun and shot the lights out. And everybody's like, maybe there is something to this. Maybe he does do this stuff. And I'm like, no kidding. It's about time, he came here in agreement to play that role, obviously, to be that person for me to have those experiences, because I do know in being in touch and clairaudient and stuff, we discover so much, which I see as such a gift and blessing, because I know that I've had to experience a lot of butterfly effect in my life. So I can teach about that and explain why we need to be in vibrational alignment and minimize butterfly effect. But I know that the family I was born into, that was, of course, there's no butterfly effect there. And so I know that the experiences I had, especially as a young child, they were meant to shape and prepare me for being somebody who would endure butterfly effect to do what I'm doing now. And so, so I don't, even the butterfly effect stuff, even the narcissistic husband and this and that, all I see there is, okay, those were experiences I was supposed to have, because my job now is to, and that's what you said, everything that happened to me, it's so I can help somebody else. I've always known that. Everything I went through, when I started talking about it openly, my family was like, okay, so people know Daddy's that way, but you can't go online and talk about that. Yes, I can, because there's somebody else out there who grew up in that and they need to hear it. And I love Daddy, and Daddy and I were fine. We ended up with a good relationship, but that didn't change the fact that there's somebody else out there that needs to be able to get to where their daddy could be that way and they could have a good relationship with them. So there's no label. I don't label my daddy as bad. I don't label my mom as bad because we stayed in it. I don't see it, any of it, that way. The ex-husband, I don't see him as, oh my God, he's evil. I don't see any of that. I see it as experiences that I had to go through, or agreed to go through, or did go through, butterfly effect through, whatever. So I'm to the point now to take that and the gifts, the increased awareness, and do something with it, which is exactly what you're doing. So our energies, like I said, the first interview we were on together, I'm like, oh my gosh, that woman and her energy, I was so drawn to it. But that's the way it is. Those of us who, this is what we do and this is what we are, and we've got similar backgrounds, we are drawn to one another.
Yes. It's I often think how when you keep yourself in alignment, what can you do? You can heal somebody just by walking past them.
Your energy, the energy they get from you. Yes.
And so it's important when we can, right, that we stay as aligned and as together as we can. But we're still human beings having this, we're spiritual beings having this human experience. And
we get out of it too.
We get out of that. And we're meant to enjoy that. We're meant to enjoy these bodies. And
we are.
And that's
are we though? I love that you get that. We're supposed to enjoy this life. So many people are like, oh, it's the University of Hard Knocks and it's meant to be hard. And no, it's not. It's meant to be, we're meant to move through these things.
Right.
And we're not meant to get stuck in those energies.
No, we're all going back to the same place.
We're all
going back to the divine. We're all going back there.
So. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So Shelly, I know you've got you're putting all the programs together. You're getting them on your website. You're doing the practices. Then you're getting the workshops out there. And I know you intend to write books of your own. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so where do you see Shelly, gift wise and growth wise and development wise, the trajectory we've got here? What do you see coming up for Shelly? Because I know, like me, we talked about this the other day too. You get up every day and you're like, okay, there is a big plan, but what am I supposed to do today? And you're doing it day by day. So maybe talk about how day by day, we know there's a big picture here, because some people don't understand that. So maybe talk to that.
Yeah, now I certainly couldn't do this when I was on my career job.
Sure.
I had a family to support. I had things to do. I had to do all that. And I did all that. And so now I get up and I just think, well, what am I working on today? Am I working on shift? Am I working on find your voice? Am I working on return to the light? Am I working on, like, I know one of the things I'm working on next week is to update the copy on my website to reflect that I'm a coach, and I need to schedule one of my shift workshops and put it out there and start marketing it so people will sign up in time for me to mail them the materials. So that is kind of what I do, whatever I feel I'm supposed to do. But if I feel tired, which there's a lot of energy going through the world right now, so if I feel tired, I go lay down.
Right.
And so I take care of myself. I take care of my home. I get a lot of pleasure out of cleaning my house, which I know sounds really weird, but I
No, it
always had
doesn't.
I always had cleaning people till COVID. And then I didn't want them coming in the house, and I found that I love cleaning my house. And so that is a joyful part of my day, is keeping my near field, my space the way I want it and how I like it. And I just go as I'm guided. And I have an amazing, wonderful husband, and I love spending time with him. We love hiking and being out in nature, and I love. We're going to Yellowstone and the Grand Tetons this year, so it's about time to start our hiking training. We go on vacation, which we have to train for. So, and I love the point where you get high enough into the mountain where you realize you're so small.
Oh yeah, me too. I love mountains. I go.
Yeah.
My son lives in Boulder, so I love, and having been there now since, well, I was there back in 2020 toward the end of it, but
Uh-huh.
yeah, I love going to the mountains. My mom and I used to fly out every year to see him, and
Oh, wonderful.
yeah, I mean that's just
It's
right.
like being at the ocean. When you look out at the ocean, you realize I'm just a teeny tiny little drop.
I know, I know. I'm so called. I think I just know I'm supposed to live at the ocean. I just know I'm supposed to because it's so calming. Well, when I lived in Washington State, I had a view of the ocean, but it was cold there. I don't want to live at the cold view.
No, you want to be in the
I want to
warm,
be in the warm. Yeah,
warm.
I want to be in the warmth. But
So I do that. At the church I go to, I do a lot of volunteering, helping. People are in need, whatever I can do. So I feel very strongly that I can give away a lot and get paid. I can generate income and give to the world at the same time. There's not an either or there for
there's not
me.
an either or,
Nope.
right?
So that is what I do. And so I in the next 6 months I hope to build a client base and get better at this stuff, and book some more speaking gigs to get my light process out there more, and kind of integrate all of this into one giant coaching and workshop package. That's
I
my plan.
I think it's an amazing plan, and what I love hearing you say is how your life is lived with, although you live it by the guidance, your life is also very intentional. You have
Mhm.
edited your life to include the things that you truly are grateful for, that truly
Yeah.
light you up, that truly are a part of what your life is supposed to be. And then
Mhm.
the peripheral, okay, it's out there, but that's not where you're guided to, and so it's not what lights you up, and so
Right.
you don't feel the pressure to have that in your world because maybe somebody else has it. You're very just not that person. You're so
Right.
it yeah, and so many people it's like the society says, or I'm expected to, or I'm supposed to, or I should, and what will that look like? And they're so still locked up in all of that. And I a part of me is like Shelly's never really been there. Shelly's always been like, no, this is what belongs, this is what belongs, this is what belongs. Well, there's a part of you that knew. There was a part of you that always knew, and that was like,
Right.
"We're going to get you there. We're going to get you
Yes.
there. We're going to get you there." And it now shines in you that you're there.
Yes. So that's what I do. And fortunately, I have a husband who supports me. If I came home and go, this is what I'm doing today, he goes, okay. This is whatever.
Well, and that's the other beauty of it too is because I've heard you talk more about your relationship in like the all the different things that you and I are in together and stuff.
Yeah.
You all definitely have you're whole and complete. He's whole and complete, but you definitely have the whole and complete relationship too, which I
Yes.
call the 1+1=3 model. You have the
Yes.
relationship dimension where you all are doing this shift together to make sure that that relationship dimension stays healthy. So because
It is.
yeah, I'm always saying how the whole 1+1=1 thing, you get so commingled, you lose
No.
and then 1+1=2. Well, then there's no but when we
Exactly.
add the third dimension, when we create the relationship dimension, which is that safe container
Yes.
for the interacting, where this is how I'm going to show up. No unconditional, no conditions on unconditional love, but no, this is how I'll show up. Then that gives us that safe space, which makes this an exponential experience for us, because it's not just your energy now. It's just not your and his energy, but you have a third energy. So it's
Exactly.
exponential. And that's how you have an exponential life, and it shows. I listen to you talk about your life whenever, because we're on a lot of stuff together.
Yes, we are.
Yeah, we're on a lot of stuff, so we get to hear each other a lot. And I listen to you, and I'm like, and that's an exponential life, and that's it. And I just every time I'm like, and Shelly's got to come on and tell people about herself, and Shelly's got to, and we've got to get Shelly's stuff out there. Shelly, are you ready yet to get your stuff out there?
I'm ready.
Yeah, because I've listened to you and I've watched you as all this has come across, and I've seen you talk about it. I love, like, you'll be talking about it, you'll say, okay, I've talked enough now. And I'm like, no, keep going. How many times have I said that to you? No, Shelly, keep going. Because your energy from it, the energy you're in, and therefore the energy you exude. That's why, yes, I'm quite sure you can walk by somebody whose energy is dense at that moment, and you're gonna lighten them. The energy is going to come up around them, and that's healing. And so you heal me every time we're on the same thing. I just see your name pop up, and I'm like, Shelly's here, and my energy comes up. And so
right back at you, lady. We have a great group, don't we? We really do.
There is we our world is a wonderful world, and as you say, we've been opened up to this expanded way of living. Although I'm always right here, but at the same time, I have a very expansive life. And so,
yes.
Yeah. Well, Shelly, before we close, is there any closing things you would like to say? Give me your website info so I can put it up here for people.
Okay. It's www.sacredgroundwalk.com.
And there we go. So if I got it right?
Yeah, that's perfect.
All right, perfect. So reach out to Shelly and become a part of this Return to the Light or her Shift program. And I know she's going to be doing the Crave More Life, Find Your Voice stuff. I know she's going to be doing that, and you're going to find integration of that very simple for you, because it's who you are, and so you're going to integrate that without any problems. But we want to have you back to talk extensively about all of the things you're doing. I want to hear you talk about the Return to the Light too, and walk us through some of that. So okay. Anything else you'd like to say before we close? It's just been I'm so glad we finally got you here.
I know. No, it's just a pleasure to be here and to know you and to be part of your world. And I just want everybody to know that they're not here to suffer, no matter how much it feels like that at some moments, that there is a path through it. And I'm here to help you with your sacred journey. Anybody, right? That's what we do for each other. We walk together.
Yeah. Co-walk through it.
Co-walk, baby.
Yeah. Shelly and I both believe that life is meant to be a beautiful thing. Life is not meant to be, if you're feeling stuck in something, if you're feeling like you can't get out of it, if you don't see a way to change it, and yet there's something missing, there's something that lights you up and you're not going for it for some reason, or you feel trapped, you're saying, they're talking about this expansive life and mine is contracted, or I don't see a way. Well, we understand that, and we want you to know that there is a way. And whether it's the way I talk about it, the way Shelly talks about it, in the end, we all end up laughing because we're all saying the same thing. We say it a little differently, and that means somebody out there will hear it and they'll say, oh, I can relate to it that way. Well, then that's who you need to work with. And that's why I bring all the people on that I do, is so you'll hear it. And Shelly does it in such a beautiful way, and has so many so many beautiful ways that she connects with people, and her energy is so pure and so magnetic. So certainly
Wow.
go to her website, check it out. There's a very good chance that Shelly is the one to help you figure out that as long as you're breathing, you really can be living in great big capital letters.
Yes.
Thank you, Shelly. Bye, you all.
Thank you. Bye.
As long